What is up, you guys? Pete Carlo here, and unfortunately, I have some bad news for you guys. We're gonna go over a quick article that was just released by CNBC with the CDC saying that cruise liners will not be able to get back to normal until November 1st, which would be right around that 18-month mark since the Rona really took its grasp on the entire world. I don't know if they're assuming that it's going to be a herd immunity type of situation, and that's why they're pushing for November. But we're going to read over the article together right now live. I'm going to give my opinions about, where I see travel going and how things are going to move into the next couple of trading sessions and next couple of months. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and let's get started. I want to preface by saying first that if you look at travel in the past couple of weeks and months, big money has been buying heavy. I mean, heavy. There are things like Las Vegas Sands, Wynn Resorts, Carnival Cruise Line, American Airlines, JetBlue. That big money has been buying a lot of these, and we've seen a massive sell-off, obviously, with intraday sessions here on, CCL, which was actually trading at highs today at 27.41, and now we're all the way down at 24, which is an 11% fade in just about an hour. Now let's go over this article together, and I'll kind of give my ideas upon this, and kind of see where we're going from here. And ironically, I've traveled more than I ever have this year, and I'm actually going away on vacation this weekend. But that doesn't mean, don't take precautions. Don't do silly things, guys. But overall, let's kind of go over this. COVID lied, I can't say the word, Roni live updates. Cruise lines push for U.S. restart, but the CDC says contagious variants are now fueling new cases. Pfizer Tuesday morning started an early stage clinical trial of an oral antivirus drug for the Rona. Because it's taken by mouth, the drug could be used to treat newly infected Rona patients outside of the hospital. Pfizer already authorized a vaccine in the US, but health experts have said that the world will need an array of drugs and vaccines in order to truly end this pandemic. The U.S. has recorded 53,000 new Rona cases and at least 940 virus-related deaths each day based on a 7-day average calculated by CNBC Johns Hopkins University. The following data has been compiled by Johns Hopkins University with global cases of more than 124 million, global deaths of 2.7 million, U.S. cases of 29 million, and U.S. deaths of 544,000. JetBlue calls back more flight attendants as travel demands are picking up. So one thing you got to realize, guys, is within the past year, obviously travel took a massive hit, but more people are traveling now than they have since the beginning of this. And like I said before, I'm not just telling you straight up because, I'm assuming that I have probably been away and traveled about 14, 15 times in the past year. Number one, because it's extremely cheap. And number two, because I just have to, mostly for work and because I enjoy to travel. But doing it in a more safer way by driving cars, taking less planes, using social distance, quarantining when I come back, doing the things that you should be doing if you are traveling. But one thing I will say, people are starting to come back. We are starting to see a massive reopening phase in the United States. The UFC is actually having their first full packed stadium event in Jacksonville, Florida in the next couple of weeks. I know way more people are flying now. As I said, JetBlue is calling back a lot more of their flight attendants. But on top of that, look at prices of flights. Prices of flights are back up to basically where they were 1 year ago from today because more people are flying than they were last year at this time, obviously, but even more than they were flying a couple of months ago. You could get a flight from here to Texas for like $44 just a couple of months ago, and now it's about $275 from Philadelphia, which is still relatively cheap, but it's nowhere near where it was. Hotels are back up to as high as they were before. So things definitely are coming back. So the New York-based carrier told flight attendants on January through June that leaves must report for training. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. New York-based carrier told flight attendants on January through June leaves that must report for training on May 22nd if they haven't already completed their federal requirements while they were out. Earlier in the month, JetBlue called for some flight attendants on 2 months leaves to come back 1 month early. So overall, obviously, JetBlue and a lot of these different companies are starting to come back stronger than they were before. Fauci also came out saying that AstraZeneca will likely issue a modified statement on its vaccine, and cruise lines to CDC saying it's time to make a plan for them to resume sailing. You have to realize most of these cruise liners have not been running, I mean, obviously nowhere near full capacity for the last year, but a lot of these cruise liners had to go out and actually take out massive, massive loans with huge interest rates just to keep them literally afloat, no pun intended. And so overall, it's very, very detrimental for the business. But a lot of these cruise liners could actually go 100% out of business and bankrupt. It's a very small chance, but specifically for something like Norwegian, they're the closest to going out of business. And if we continue to delay these, it could be detrimental. The trade group for the world's biggest cruise lines on Wednesday called the CDC to allow a phased-in resumption of sailings from U.S. ports in early July. It's been more than 1 year since cruise lines suspended all U.S. sailing due to the Rona, and the Cruise Line International Association said its time frame will match up with President Joe Biden's goal for when the U.S. will be closer to normal. With most hotels, casinos, and airlines starting to see a huge recovery in bookings since their lows in the Rona, I can't say the P word, most cruise ships still remain idle. And one thing you have to realize as a trader or an investor, that's a huge point to, get to is cruise lines have really been recovering pretty well over the past year, as well with things, like hotels, if we look at LVS, or if we look at Wynn Resorts, with different airliners like American Airlines, Spirit Airlines, JetBlue. But really, they've been moving with these, airlines and with these different hotels, even though they're not operating. These hotel companies are still operating. These casino companies are still operating. These airliners and carriers, they're still operating. Carnival, Norwegian, those cruise companies, Royal Caribbean, they are not operating a fraction of the percent that they were pre-Rona. And so overall, with you can continue to read this article. It just goes up with like 20 different stories of what they're actually talking about and the push to get this done. But the main thing to speak upon, because I don't want to bore you guys, is the fact that we really are starting to get into this gray area of will we open and how will we open. This whole coming back from this lockdown and moving back to a reopening phase has been so iffy over the past 3 months specifically. You have different states like I know Texas for sure, West Virginia, Florida, Maryland, and a couple other states are 100% back to full capacity, still wearing masks and everything, but 100% full back to capacity. Like I said earlier, we have the UFC that is going ahead and doing a 100% jam-packed to the brim, sporting event just a couple weeks from now. But then you have the CDC coming out saying different variants are happening with, that we're not gonna be able to go ahead and sail. And it's going to be this weird timing where if we are actually unable to really start to open up by June, July, August, we could see another massive crash. And I'm not saying 40, 50%, but another 10, 12, 15% decline on top of this. I don't think that will happen, to be quite honest. I'm pretty bullish on the US stock market. I'm pretty bullish on this reopening process because I think it has to happen. I think if it doesn't happen and we were to lock down again or continue to do this, it would do way more damage than it would do good. And a lot of politicians are starting to realize that and starting to understand that we will have nothing to save from an economic standpoint if we don't start to reopen. And hopefully we can do that in the best possible way that we can. But if you're somebody who is heavily invested in travel right now, I would really be watching this closely. And like I said, for me, I wouldn't be buying currently at these levels. I wouldn't be buying cruise liners. I do think that, I did in the next couple of months, I do think that airliners, and I do think that we're going to see a huge spike in hotels and hotel companies and resorts and different casinos. I do think we'll see a huge move in those to the upside in the next couple of months, but I'm still not bullish on cruise lines, guys. Thank you for all the support. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.